Welcome to my very first crew room chat, where I talk to you guys about all the gossip that's happening at the airport. You interested? You in? I know you are. Hey everybody, it's Erica from America, your favorite flight attendant, and today I am spilling the tea on all the things that you never wanted to know about at the airport. Be afraid, be very afraid. Just kidding. Yeah, today is something new that I'm trying. You tell me in the comments if you like this kind of information or not. Don't worry, it's not political. I've decided politics is not my thing. But airline industry news is. And you probably want to know like what the pilots are thinking because the flight attendants and the pilots at O'Hare at my company, we share a crew room and we talk and we gossip. And I figured I might as well spill the tea on what's going on. So in this first episode of Crew Room Chat, I'm going to be talking to you about ATC, TSA, airport cuts, and also what you can expect if you're planning on flying between now and the end of the year. You in? I know you're in. Let's do this. Okay, to kick this off, every time I do a crew room chat, I am going to show you a video that kind of shows you what's going on this week. And I am going to talk about what I heard people saying in the crew rooms. Let's start off with ATC and TSA. You may have heard Trump say in the last week that he's going to make sure they're getting paid. Gossip around the crew room says, nope, they still haven't been paid. And today is Thursday, November 6th, which is, I guess, day 37 of the shutdown, because I think it shut down October 1st. What does that mean for ATC and TSA? If you did watch my one and only political video where I did talk about ATC and TSA, then you may remember that I showed a video where basically at O'Hare, we need 4 types of ATC workers. We need the ones that watch the gates so that the planes don't crash into each other when they're being backed out. We need one that watches the runways so they can taxi over to where they take off. We need one that watches takeoff and landings. And we need one that watches the skies and makes sure that the planes don't crash into each other, as well as talking federally to other planes. So we need 4 types of ATC workers at the bigger airports, right? Also, with the TSA agents, we need the TSA agents to do what TSA does, which is stop terrorists and make sure that we're all safe on these planes and in the airports. So the fact is they have not been paid for roughly 37 days because if the shutdown started October 1st, they may not have gotten their October 1st check. So yesterday I was in the crew room and I was talking with a couple pilots and they said that apparently it is illegal for an essential worker to quit during a shutdown and it's considered a felony. And both pilots seemed to be on board with this that were talking to me about it. And I didn't know if it was true or not. So I did pop over to Google and ChatGPT and I did ask, is it a felony for an essential worker to quit during a government shutdown? Both ChatGPT and Google said no. But there are other consequences, like you could lose your benefits if you quit. You might be made unhireable. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump doesn't give them back pay if they quit. And they're hanging in there for 37 days without pay. It's insane to me, especially when Trump is threatening to make sure that they don't get back pay. But how does that affect you? Well, first of all, if you also remember from that political video that I did mention that they just got minimum rest back in June, meaning that they need to have 10 hours on the ground. So as soon as they walk out the door, that 10 hours starts, and they have 10 hours to get back to that door, which means somewhere in the middle of that, they're supposed to get home and sleep. Yeah, you'd think that they would have had that before, but no. So what does that mean? TSA, they seem to be on a different system. I don't know exactly what their rules are because I don't talk to TSA that much other than, please let me go through. I don't want to be randomed. So let me really quickly show you exactly what's happening because ATC is being overworked. They're being forced to do double shifts. They're being forced to work minimum 10-hour days, 6 days a week. Let me show you what that looks like real quick. For starters, we've had a few near misses since the shutdown has started. I'm just going to run through them real quick just so you guys can see. I put it into Google and just said, hey, tell me about the Southwest near miss. It involved a Southwest Airlines jet and a medical helicopter near Cleveland Hopkins International Airport on October 29, 2025. And it's investigating the event as a loss of separation. So basically what happened was right here, a Southwest Boeing 737 was on its final approach to land, and a Eurocopter medical helicopter operated by Metro Aviation was operating in the same area. The 2 aircraft breached the minimum safety distance required by federal air traffic rules. The Southwest pilots received a collision avoidance system alert, aborted their landing, and performed a go-around maneuver deviating from their course to avoid the helicopter. Is that an ATC issue? I can't say yes or no because I'm not in the news. I'm not in the reports, but ATC people are usually excellent in making sure that this stuff doesn't happen. Like I said, you usually have somebody who's watching the takeoff and landings. Luckily, we didn't have another DC incident. That was one. Here's another one. Delta, on October 30th, 2025, a Delta flight was forced to go around while landing at Boston Logan International Airport after air traffic control cleared a Cape Air flight to take off from an intersecting runway. The Delta Airlines flight and the Cape Air flight came dangerously close, prompting the Delta crew to execute a go around and land safely later. And the FAA is investigating the event. Now, again, question is it an ATC issue? That has not been decided. Also, go rounds are kind of normal when it comes to flying. There's a lot of things that will make a plane go round, and it might be that ATC said, hey, you need to go round. In this one, air traffic control caught it, but it might not have happened. You know what I mean? Like if they weren't short staffed. And I'm pretty sure they're calling in sick because they need to make money to support their families after 37 days. Plus, they're also tired. I'm just saying. And then finally, we had two United incidents happen at once. In October 2025, two United airplanes made contact while taxiing at LaGuardia Airport on October 31st. Another two United planes collided at Chicago O'Hare on October 17th. There's no gossip about that at O'Hare unless you're, with United. There were no injuries reported in either incident, though both aircraft were evaluated for damage. The LaGuardia one, a United Airlines flight, returning to its gate, clipped the tail of another United plane that was waiting to taxi for departure. All passengers deplaned normally, and the Federal Aviation Administration is investigating. And the one at O'Hare, one United plane's wing made contact with the tail of a stationary United plane on the ground. The moving aircraft had passengers on board, but neither the 113 passengers nor the 5 crew members were injured. The other plane was empty at the time. The Chicago O'Hare one is very likely to be a ground crew problem, not necessarily an ATC problem, but there are towers at each gate, so ATC might have been at fault in some way if they didn't warn the ground crew, because the ground crew can only see the wing walkers, and they push the plane back. They rely on the wing walkers, and they rely on what they're being told in their headphones. And I think ATC is usually involved in that conversation because we do have ATC controllers to watch the gates and make sure that doesn't happen. And again, United Airlines flight clipping the tail of another United plane that was waiting to taxi for departure. That again, ATC would be the ones with the eyes on that, and they were probably watching other planes at the time instead of watching that. So that's kind of what's going on with ATC. There's a lot of near misses that seem to be going on since the shutdown began. However, having said that, the ripple effect on that is that a lot of the pilots now understand that this is a concern because we all gossip about this stuff in the crew room, and they are going to be watching a lot more carefully to make sure that they're not one of the pilots that create that incident, if you know what I mean. It is kind of crazy. We obviously need to make sure that we get this shutdown over with. We need to make sure that ATC and TSA get paid. And having said that, let's go ahead and talk about what's happening with TSA. Okay, with TSA, gossip is that it is taking forever to get through security these days. I had literally 2 flight attendants yesterday tell me that they came from Houston. One of them told me that the wait to get through the security line was 3 hours, while another one told me that it was 4 hours to get through security, which is unheard of. Here it is right here. Houston's Intercontinental and Hobby Airport are reporting the longest TSA waits in 2025 due to government shutdown, with wait times exceeding 3 hours. Other airports, including significant delays, include Dallas-Fort Worth and Newark and Atlanta. And a lot of that is that they don't have enough TSA agents. Let's just say it's concerning. So if you're going to fly, you need to be aware that it's going to take a lot longer for you to get through security than would normally take. So don't leave an hour or two before your flight. Leave 5 or 6 hours before your flight. Otherwise, you might be in TSA while your plane is taking off. And finally, the other thing that's happening that is very worrisome, especially if you're planning on traveling between now and Christmas, is that it has now been decided that 40 airports are going to be closing as many as 10% of the flights. Okay? Hear me get on that. The airports are going to be cutting roughly up to 10% of the flights, and it's supposed to start at 4% as of tomorrow, November 7th. And there is a video here from ABC News. I have not actually watched it yet, but I was watching the news last night in the crew room, and it blew my mind. O'Hare is one of the airports that's getting cut, and apparently what the news was saying was that the airlines, not the airport, but the airlines are saying that it's not going to affect hub-to-hub travel, which means mainline, big airport to big airport. Remember, I'm regional. I fly big airport to little airport. So most likely what's going to end up happening is they're going to start cutting the flights to have the least number of passengers. So if you're in a very small town where you know that not a lot of passengers fly in or out, it's very likely those flights are going to be the ones that are cut. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of the airports start being closed down soon, some of those smaller airports. So again, that's going to be a problem. If you're planning on traveling, expect that you might have to drive to the biggest airport near you, which might be a few hours away. And again, you want to leave a few hours early for TSA. So let's go ahead and watch this so you can get an idea. This is 5 minutes long. FAA reduced flight capacity by 10% across 40 airports and the government shutdown.
And we have now just learned that thousands of flights here in the U.S. are about to be canceled. Day 36 now, the longest shutdown in U.S. history, breaking the record set during the first Trump administration. Because of air traffic controllers not getting paid, air traffic now will be reduced by 10% into 40 major airports. Thousands of flights to be canceled. Here's Rachel Scott with what we know.
Tonight, the government shutdown hits 36 days, marking the longest in history, breaking the previous record set during President Trump's first administration, and the strain on air travel reaching a breaking point.
This is about where's the pressure and how do we alleviate the pressure. Our sole role is to make sure that we keep this airspace as safe as possible.
In an unprecedented move, President Trump's Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announcing the FAA will cut flight capacity by 10%, which experts say means thousands of flights will be canceled across 40 major airports by the weekend.
What will this mean practically for air travel? Is this going to lead to more flight delays, more cancellations?
Well, I think it's going to lead to more cancellations. That we're going to work with the airlines to do this in a systematic way.
Across the country, air traffic controller shortages have already caused massive delays and cancellations as workers go without pay and call out sick. About 60,000 TSA workers also missing paychecks. Today, Philadelphia's International Airport closing 2 security checkpoints.
We're petrified. We are concerned.
At Washington Dulles Airport, FAA radar technician and union rep Kleberson Schmidt warning the impact will get worse the longer the shutdown drags on.
You were already short-staffed.
Correct.
And how much worse has the shutdown made it?
It's exponentially made it worse because we're exhausted now.
And how much does that compromise air safety?
That compromise goes up every single day.
All right, so day 36 now, Rachel Scott live up on the Hill. Rachel, when are we going to learn from the FAA the list of airports that are going to be affected here? A lot of people at home watching this. How many passengers a day could be impacted by this move?
A lot.
Well, David, experts say that hundreds of thousands of Americans could see their flights canceled starting on Friday. And the Transportation Secretary telling me today that number could grow the longer this shutdown drags.
Okay, hold up. I know they're saying hundreds of thousands, but honestly, if you do the math, it's probably going to be in the millions, to be honest with you. O'Hare Airport averages about 80 million people going through it per year, which is one of the highest. What's 80 million divided by 365?
80 million divided by 365 is approximately 219,178.0822.
219,000 is per day. So 10% of that would be 20,000 a day just at O'Hare. If you were to multiply that by 40 airports, just off the top of my head, you're looking around 800,000 possibly per day. 800,000 people per day, potentially. Now, O'Hare is one of the busiest airports in the world, so each airport would be slightly less. So conservatively, let's say 500,000 people per day. I've said it in the last video, and I'll say it again. You may want to reconsider air travel this winter season. You may want to think about road tripping this one, or taking the bus, or finding another way to get there, because you don't want to end up stranded in one of these airports. Do you know what I'm saying? On the other hand, it might be a potential for you to make a lot of money too. It's hard to say. I don't know what the airlines are going to do, considering that they're going to have to reimburse passengers for these flights. There's a couple of airlines already that are hanging on by a thread. Like Spirit is supposed to go out of business next year, and this is going to hurt them even worse. Delta apparently has just lost some government contract with the U.S. They're going to get hit hard very soon. I don't know why the government is picking on Delta all of a sudden, but they are. It's going to be crazy. So they're saying hundreds of thousands. Yeah, I would guess on the safe side, like 500,000 a day might get affected by this at 10%, at just 10%. But I mean, that's 10% of flights. So hopefully less than that. But still, you see what I'm saying?
drags on. I'm told the president was made aware of this unprecedented move, and we are expected to get the full list of airports that will be impacted tomorrow, David.
This is going to be a major story moving forward. Rachel Scott, thank you.
Okay, guys, it is officially Monday, November 10th. It's 9:30 at night, and I just wanted to share a couple things with you. First of all, I did go into work on both Saturday and yesterday, and the mayhem had begun. I actually ended up talking to a passenger at O'Hare who was trying to go to Traverse City, and he had been there on Friday, and his flight had gotten canceled. And he was saying, I hope Traverse City doesn't get canceled today. I was just randomly walking through the airport with him. And then I went over to my office, walked into this one part of the office where we usually have somebody who tracks the flights at night to see who needs flight attendants or pilots and who needs food breaks. And he told me we have had 16 flight cancellations today. At that point, it was like 4:30 in the afternoon. And then as he was saying that, he went, 17. Traverse City just got canceled. And I went, I wonder if that customer was flying with us. That would really suck. Considering he was in our terminal, it's very likely that he was flying with us because they don't usually fly to small regional airports like that, like multiple flights at the same time with the same airline. So I think he might have been affected by us, which is a total bummer. But as of 5 o'clock on Saturday, our small regional airline port had had 17 cancellations, and there had been quite a few when I walked in. I was really surprised as I was comparing the boards to realize that it looked like United had fewer cuts than American. And it made me come up with a theory until yesterday when I was leaving. And then I saw these boards right here. As I was leaving yesterday, Saturday at 5 p.m., I thought, maybe my theory will work, but maybe it won't. So here's my theory. United Airlines is headquartered in Chicago. Because of that, Chicago O'Hare protects United more than the other airlines. When I started at O'Hare 8 years ago, United was only in Terminal 1 and maybe a few gates in Terminal 2, but Delta was in Terminal 2 and American was in Terminal 3. Recently, within the last year, if I remember right, Delta got bumped over to Terminal 5 and United took over Terminal 2 as well as Terminal 1. And then they began creeping into Terminal 3, and American Airlines has been suing Chicago O'Hare, the city of Chicago, to stop that from happening because they don't want to lose any of their gates. Them suing is not working, and so United is slowly creeping into Terminal 3 as well, which makes me wonder if what's going to happen at Chicago is what happened in Dallas. In Dallas, American Airlines has their headquarters there, and they pretty much have nearly every gate in Dallas. In fact, when I was in Dallas one day, I was going around interviewing flight attendants, and I was just trying to find as many flight attendants as I could, and I happened to be in Dallas that day. And as I was walking around, I realized the United and Delta have like practically no gates at Dallas. And what I noticed when I went in on Saturday was that United seemed to have less flights cut overall compared to American Airlines. And so I couldn't help but think, I wonder if the airport has one airline that's more predominant than the other airlines. I wonder if that city is going to help protect them by canceling the other flights. Do you know what I mean? Those airlines bring business to that city. So it would make sense that the cities would try to protect the airline that's bringing them the most flights by cutting fewer of their flights and more of their competitors' flights. So that's just something to think about. It's just my theory, my personal theory. Knowing business and corporations the way that I do from my research side of my life. If you know me, you know that I've also been a market financial feasibility researcher for the last 22 years, and I work with big businesses. So I do understand how they think about the dollars and cents. I've also worked with a lot of cities around the U.S. doing research projects for them as well, so I get an idea of how they think as well. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. If you're going into a main airport near you, try to figure out who's got the most gates, and that might help you make your flying easier. The other thing I wanted to show you, today is November 10th. Supposedly the shutdown was called to a halt today, and you may think, great, the airlines can get back on track right away. That's not how it works in the airline industry. Trust me, after having worked through COVID and seeing people get furloughed and fired, and basically having 40% of the airline industry just laid off, asked to retire, asked to quit, fired for whatever reason they could fire them for, seeing airports shut down, all that stuff during COVID, it took a while for it to come back. It didn't take as long as the airlines predicted that it would take. They thought it would take 10 years. It only took about a year for it to come back. But in this factor, if I were to make a prediction personally from my experience of flying, I think it comes down simply to the ATC people. How tired are they? If they get full back pay, fantastic, but that doesn't solve the problem of them being exhausted. And if they got a second job during this time period, there is the fact that they have to wrap up that job somehow. If they did Uber, that's not a problem. They just stop answering the calls. But say they got a job at a bar or a restaurant or whatever, they might have to give their notice. They might have to continue to work 2 jobs, or they might have found jobs where they're getting paid better and the hours are better, and they might not want to come back, which was what happened a lot during COVID. A lot of the people did not want to come back. So keep that in mind. I really do think that the rest of the travel season is going to be bad. And according to what I've heard about the Democrats giving into the shutdown, it sounds like it's going to be shut down again come January. No matter what you think, no matter which side you fall on, Democrats or Republicans, the truce that they made right now is simply a truce, and the Democrats are stepping up to say, hey, you can't use SNAP as a weapon in your negotiations. Fund SNAP immediately, and you can't not back pay people just because you don't like them. You need to pay them and bring them back, and then you have to guarantee that you're never going to do this again. So I think that's a pretty powerful tool, even though most of the people that I watch on YouTube about all this information are super pissed off today. And for one, I'm glad to see that the ATC and the TSA and also the soldiers and all that should get back pay. And this part is hotel chatter. I was in the hotel yesterday and a woman told me that when you are active military, you are not allowed to work a second job. I did not realize that. Like, I had been very concerned about ATC and TSA, and I know the soldiers don't get a lot of money to begin with, because I had a friend who was a soldier like 20 years ago, and when he told me his hourly pay, I was like, that is disgraceful. And he was like, no, it works out. We get housing and we get discounted stuff. And I'm like, you're making $12 an hour as a soldier. That's not a lot of money, but to not be able to work a second job even. So my heart really goes out to the soldiers out there, even more than it did before, to find out that they can't work a second job and not get paid. And I think a lot of their family members often don't work because of the whole factor of kids and having to take care of the kids while the soldiers are gone. I used to love to watch Army Wives. Have you ever seen that? It was a really good show. I think it did a really good job of showing what military life must be like with all the difficulties that they have to face. But anyway, I'm going to leave that here and say, if you guys like this kind of crew room chat, let me know in the comments below. If you do, I will try to do weekly updates of different things I'm seeing happening in the industry and what the chatter is about it, if there is any chatter. Those videos are going to be a lot shorter than this one. I'm going to try to keep those to under 10 minutes. But since this was my first one and there was so much to cover, it was long. I apologize. Anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe, notification bell, blah, blah, blah. See you in the next video. Ciao.